Imagine if you woke up one day and found yourself being the only heir to a wealthy family, and your whole life would be completely different. Well, this is exactly what this story is all about. Duncan South had always been living a life of worthlessness despite being married to Zinnia Leonard, the beauty goddess of the city. He was disregarded by her and demeaned by her family. He faced humiliation every day with great tolerance because of the love he had for his wife. Zinnia, can you please help me with some money? He asked his wife one evening when she returned from work. It was the time of the month when he had to pay the monthly hospital bills for his sick mother, and he had nothing. "You're shameless and worthless," she told him, and poured out all the insults at him before going to the bathroom. He didn't know what to do. He told the doctor and asked for a few days to gather the money. The doctor was benevolent to grant him his request. The following day, the Leonard family is having breakfast. Duncan was filling the cups of everyone with a kettle of tea. Then he remembered that his birthday was in a few days. He didn't know what pushed him to tell the family about it. Maybe he was hoping the news of such would bring a little smile to their faces, but that was foolish of him to have thought. "Zinnia, everyone. My birthday is in a few days." They all ogled at him after he announced. Zinnia gnashed her teeth as she stopped eating. "So, how the hell is that my concern?" she asked, disgusted. Well, it's actually on Wednesday and what?" His mother-in-law, Layla, cut him off. In a fit of rage, she slammed her hand against the table's surface and shouted, "Do you think we give a damn about when a nobody like you was born? Ow, take it easy, sister-in-law." Zinnia's aunt, Bella, pouted and suppressed her laughter by placing her hand against her mouth as her daughter, Lisa, burst into laughter. Lisa contributed, laughing. "Oh, Aunt, but you're right. Duncan, we don't care about a good-for-nothing fella's birthday. It would have been better if it was your funeral. The news would have gladdened our hearts," Zinnia's elder brother, Marcus said, and a repulsive smile snarled up to his face. "At least, you could have given us a little bit of good news about your mother who has gone to the other side of the world," Lisa's brother, Aaron, said, and that stung Duncan. He balled his fist and wanted to retaliate, but a stern look from his wife stopped him. "I know you need something from Zinnia, so go on and say it for us to hear," Layla scoffed. "Gosh, you shouldn't feel ashamed. She's your wife, and I'm sure Zinnia will gladly give you anything," Lisa said. "That's if she's rich. I'm sure all this while he's been living off her. Poor Zinnia must have secretly gone broke," Marcus teased. "But I can give you some $100 if you could deliver some pizzas to my friends immediately, Duncan," Lisa taunted. Zinnia couldn't bear her relative's words. As always, she felt ashamed and disgusted just by glancing at Duncan. She was boiling with rage and couldn't stop herself from yelling at him. "What do you want from me, low life?" "No, Zinnia, I don't want anything from you. I just want to make my birthday memorable for you." Everyone glanced at themselves and roared into laughter. "You're a mere delivery guy. What do you have to offer? I'm sure you won't even be able to get a $100 cake to celebrate your birthday, and you're thinking of making it special for Zinnia? That's silly of you to think." Bella shook her head, clicking her tongue. "Zinnia, believe me," Duncan assured, smiling at his wife. They further went on to ridicule him, but Duncan ignored their taunts and simply left the dining room. "You know what, pal? I heard you covered up for me in my absence, well, like you promised you would. Thanks, buddy." John, Duncan's colleague, appreciated him later in the day when he walked into their changing room after doing a delivery. John had gone for a little travel to pay a visit to his sick mother, who was residing in the next city. Before he left, he had asked him to cover up for him, and only when Duncan gave his word to him and their boss was John permitted to leave. "Don't worry, your dinner is on me today." "Oh, thanks, but I'll pass it." "Why? You've got some plans? I know your rich wife won't prepare something good for you tonight," John joked, and seeing the serious expression that suddenly surfaced on Duncan's face, John knew it was wrong to have made such a joke.
"I'm sorry.
"I didn't mean to hurt you in any way. It's all right. Actually, I've got something important to do tonight." What is that?" John lifted his brows, inquisitively. "My birthday is this Wednesday. WOA great, then let's turn the table around. You owe me a treat on that day. Duncan chuckled and nodded. I'll give you a treat, but that will be on the following day after my birthday. Huh. You see, I'm planning a surprise for my wife. Hey, I don't remember you telling me that you both share the same birth date. We don't. So why do you want to surprise her when you're the birthday boy? She ought to give you a surprise and not the other way round. Well, it's not the case. I've taken my whole savings to get her something special on my birthday. Man. John scratched the back of his head and took a deep sigh. I've not known you much, but I've seen how your wife acted with you on some occasions when I dropped by the Leonard Manor. I don't think she'll value whatever you give. But I see you're crazily in love with her. I'm not ashamed to admit that. That's why I want to surprise her on my birthday. Must you use your life savings to appease your wife? She deserves it. It's actually my savings for the last 5 years. Duncan's smile widened as he imagined his wife's face glittering when he'll surprise her with something more better and expensive than his previous gifts. Anyway, so I'll be checking some nice jewelry stores by tonight. I'll get my wife something unique, and I know she'll appreciate it. Good luck, pal. I just hope your wife doesn't give you a shocking surprise instead. John slapped his arm lightly and took a towel from his locker before leaving. On Wednesday morning, Duncan excitedly went to a jewelry store after withdrawing his savings to pay for a gleaming ring with a silver stud. He had borrowed a few $100 from John to make up $10,000, which was the price for the ring. He told the salesgirl that he was coming to take the ring later in the evening and left. He has taken the day off and so decided to go home. When he made lunch for the house, the family at home mocked him for being meaningless to Zinnia. Your dear wife didn't even wish you happy birthday today, and that's because you're an insignificant fellow to her, Bella taunted. Don't feel sad, pathetic brother-in-law. It's meaningless to feel bad. I'm sure Zinnia didn't even remember today was your birthday, Lisa teased. I'm sure she has a lot on her mind, Duncan thought to himself. She probably would realize before the day runs out that it's my birthday today. He was self-assured, and so he didn't pay heed to the family members' hurtful words. He and Zinnia have been married for 3 years, and in all those years, starting from when he started living in the manor, she had only wished him once on his birthday, though that was before she knew her grandfather would marry her off to him. He still was ready to take it if she didn't wish him. He was more focused on showing his surprise gift to her that day. Later in the evening, Duncan left the store with the ring in a box, packed inside a small fancy bag. He tried calling Zinnia to know if she'll be back home soon, but she wasn't reachable. Not until he texted her a message that he was coming over to the company. Then she returned his calls. Zinnia, have been trying to reach out to you. What is it? She cut him off in a harsh tone. Why do you want to come to the company? I'm having an important meeting. I'll come over and wait outside the company's building for you till the meeting is over. No. Don't come. What do you want? I just want you to be home soon. Fine. Will you be home soon? Zinnia ended the call immediately, ignoring his question. Duncan thought she was going to return soon, so he shrugged off his worry and headed home. When he got home, he was a bit surprised to know that his wife wasn't home yet. He waited till 9 p.m., and when Zinnia had not yet returned home, he decided to go to the company. That's his greatest shock. He got to know from the security man on his shift there that Zinnia had left before office hours were over by 6 p.m. He called her multiple times, but her line wasn't reachable. He thought sadly of where his wife could be. Just when he wanted to mount his scooter and head home, it struck him. He had installed a phone tracker app on Zinnia's phone some months ago. Zinnia had almost gone missing in an intoxicated state that day, and he was so worried. When she was found by the police, he had sneakily taken her phone one night when she was having a shower and installed the app because he knew she wouldn't let him do so if he told her. His face lit up when he checked his phone and saw that he could know where she was. Following the guide of the tracker, he drove to a place that happened to be one of the family's farmhouses. Since the tracker indicator stopped at the farmhouse, he knew his wife was going to be there, and that made him start thinking about what she could be possibly doing in the hideous farmhouse. When he entered the house, he stared at some cushions disarranged by the corner of the living room. Go on. Duncan's expression changed into a scowl as he heard the distant moans of a woman. So many things ran through his mind. He heard distant voices, and one sounded like that of his wife. He couldn't dare to fathom what was going on, so he quickly ran to the room by the kitchen, desperate to know what was going on. His heart pounded as he reached the door. Then the sounds of the moans grew louder, pushing him to open the door. A sharp exhale escaped his mouth that fell open. He quivered upon seeing what was going on in the room. The unimaginable had happened. There on the bed lay Zinnia with her legs widely spread apart. Ah! Zinnia let out a thunderous, crazy moan of pleasure. At that moment, Duncan felt his world crumble in front of his eyes. They were lost in their crazy pleasure, and so were oblivious to the fact that Duncan was standing at the door, a few meters away. As he choked back his tears, not wanting a drop to fall, he gnashed his teeth as they began rolling on the bed, bodies intertwined. The rage that started building inside him was extreme, so he ignored his heart telling him to turn around and leave. Not able to withstand it anymore, he took 2 steps forward and hollered his wife's name. Zinnia! He growled. His growl sent the two disengaging as it broke through the haze of pleasure that had enclosed her a second back. She tilted her head and saw Duncan standing in front of the bed. His tears, which he had failed to hold back, rolled down his cheeks. Zinnia couldn't believe her eyes. She has never in her wild imagination thought that Duncan would come there. Her face went bleak and she quickly rolled out of the bed, covering herself with the quilt, looking at Duncan with a surprised and a tint of guilt expression. The man, on the other hand, was pissed off. It was obvious by the ugly look he had on his face as he hurriedly got out of the bed and reached out to his clothes on the floor. As he dressed up, though staring at his wife, Duncan could feel the man glaring at him with a sneer on his face. Duncan, what are you doing here? Zinnia asked, trying to hide her nervousness as she stupidly surprised a chuckle. Oh, I should have stayed home, hopelessly waiting for you while you have a lot of time to enjoy the scum riding on you, he said with a pure sarcastic tone. Zinnia was irked, but she couldn't maintain eye contact with him. Come on, Duncan. It's not what you're thinking that happened, okay? She glanced at the man and shut her eyes, trying to think of what to say next. Look, I can explain. Just hear me out. Screw you. Duncan cut her off with a ball. You're trying to say that you both were just rubbing bodies earlier or that he wasn't banging you? Duncan gave a brief pause. Do I look like a fool? He asked, his voice growing louder. The man who got more pissed off by Duncan raising his voice asked, Hey, Zinnia, who the hell is he? He walked over to her. Duncan was amazed. He let out a bitter chuckle and took a step forward. You're asking who I am? Aren't I supposed to be the one inquiring about you? Trash bag. Duncan brushed past his wife with his shoulders to face the man who was behind her trying to button up his long sleeves button. Tell me who the hell you are? He asked, his eyes brimming with rage. Man, get away from my sight. You don't need to know who I am, the man said, pointing at Duncan in the face. He tried to shove him aside and walk past him, infuriating Duncan the more. Duncan blocked the man's way and grabbed him by the collar of his shirt. He was eager to see the man rolling on the floor in the next few seconds, feeling excruciating pain. He pushed the man to the wall and gave him a series of jabs before kicking him and sending him to the floor. Zinnia was boiling in abrupt rage as she watched Alex slap the man like he was a kid before rushing up to him. Snap out of it, Duncan. How dare you hit him? Her words struck him and something like a sigh of relief escaped the man's lips as Duncan slowly let go of him. He turned to face Zinnia glaring at him, his eyes gleaming with fury. What? How dare I? How dare you cheat on me with this trash bag? Zinnia. So? Tell me, what if I cheated on you with him? At least I got good taste because this man is nothing like you. He's far from being something like you. Do you know him? He's Peterson Roger. He's an affluent man in the city, and he's the COO of a worldwide known undercompany which is part of a huge conglomerate. Duncan was thrown off balance by the way his wife defended the man. Never in his life had he seen her stand up for someone like that, let alone him. You've done a lot, now get out. She grabbed his arm and dragged him out of the house. Having no place to go, Duncan wandered aimlessly in the streets. His mind was shrouded with disappointment, betrayal, and anger. He was almost at the dead end of a street when he decided to take a rest by a dumpster. He sighed, and after a while, his phone vibrated in his hand. He got a call from an unknown number. Who could this be? He shrugged and answered the call, reluctantly. "Hello, young master, you finally answered the call." A baritone voice revealing worry and excitement said. Duncan's lips parted as he stared at the phone screen and shook his head. "Excuse me? Who are you?" he questioned, baffled. "Young Master Walton, I'm your loyal man. I'm greatly pleased that you've answered the call." Young Master Walton? Duncan was dazed. Who could it be that's addressing him so highly and respectfully? He wondered. Then Duncan supposed it was a wrong number. "I think you called the wrong line. Sorry. I'll hang up now. Please, master." Duncan angrily ended the call and sighed. As he contemplated on whether to sleep by the dumpster or go to a nearby police station to sleep, his phone rang again. This time, he ignored the call after checking it was the same number that called before. Why can't they go and fool someone else? My life is on the brink of ending and I'm feeling depressed. Still, these heartless scammers won't stop until they've swindled a poor person. He grumbled, looking down the quiet, empty street. Some passers-by who walked past him and saw him grumbling to no one but himself thought he had lost his sanity. He felt more embarrassed knowing that they must be regarding him to be a mad fellow. After incessant calls from the number, Duncan angrily decided to answer the call, swearing to pour out his anger and frustration on the caller, who he already assumed was a fraudster. "Young Master Walton," the baritone voice said when he answered the call, but he quickly interrupted him, almost shouting. "I'm not your master. My last name isn't Walton. Are you? Excuse me, but you're Duncan?"
No.
Duncan said in a rush and paused when he realized he had answered wrongly. "Yes,
I'm Duncan."
Young master, please give me a chance for clarification. I'll be where you are in a jiffy." The caller hung up and Duncan couldn't stop himself from laughing strangely. "Let me see how he disappears and appears here. I'm sure he's not a magician," he said to himself. In less than 10 minutes, Duncan was about to doze off by the dumpster. Then, vroom, vroom, vroom. The sounds of moving cars forced him to jump up, and in a blink of an eye, a fleet of slick Ford Mustang GT500 cars pulled up in line before him. The doors of the cars quickly opened and a group of men dressed in black suits, wearing the same color of wireless earbuds and dark glasses, stepped out. Some passers-by stopped right in their tracks upon seeing them. Duncan's jaw dropped as they all at once bowed down to him. "Greetings, young Master Walton." Their voices boomed as they greeted in unison to his amazement. Duncan was stunned by the breathtaking display of wealth and the greetings of the men. He felt like he was already in his dream world even when he wasn't asleep, so he pinched himself. He stopped himself from screaming due to the pain he felt from pinching himself and finally admitted that he wasn't dreaming. Mutterings of the passers-by began to surround him, and he couldn't help but to look at himself from head to toe, thinking he must have been miraculously endowed by God in a great outfit in a flash that made the men greet him with so much respect. But he got quizzical when he noticed he was still putting on the ugly pair of baggy trousers and restaurant's delivery guy polo shirt. He has never in his life seen such a thing like this, talk less of experiencing such a thing even in his wildest imagination. He couldn't fathom why they were showing him great respect, neither could he understand their display. "Please, leave me. I don't know any of you," Duncan said when he started feeling embarrassed, as none of the men dared to lift up their heads when he didn't acknowledge their greetings. Just then, a staunch-looking man in his mid-50s who had not gone out from the last car in the line pushed open the back door of the car and stepped out. He wore a gray suit, and just by catching a glimpse of it, Duncan didn't need a soothsayer to tell him that the fabric of the suit was of high quality and it was well made to fit his body stature. He moved with an aura that clouded his size and took cautious steps. The men in black suits made way for him as he advanced. Duncan failed to see the elatedness in the man's huge eyes because he felt lost until he stopped in front of him. As the man went down on a knee, the other men dropped to their left knees. "I'm glad to see you, young Master Walton," the man said with a rumbling voice that made Duncan freeze after he bowed to him. After a minute of silence, the man requested, "Your loyal servant asked that you please show your benevolence by granting us permission to rise, or we won't rise." Duncan looked aside, lips parted. Then he nodded. "Why? You all rise," he said with a confused tone. "Thanks, master." The man arose and glanced back, making the other men chorus. "Thank you, young master." They arose and stared at him with lit eyes. "Please pardon me to touch you," the man said and hugged Duncan. Wait, could he be Mr. White? He thought. Mr. White was the owner of the restaurant he worked for. He has heard from his boss, actually the manager of the restaurant, that Mr. White, who owns a few other restaurants in the city, was a kind man who was wishing to see him because he had been seeing the monthly reviews of the restaurant and was impressed to have good reviews from their customers regarding Duncan, who delivers their orders to them in time. But he can't be this rich and put off this display to show appreciation. Moreover, I'm being paid on time. Duncan thought in his mind again, mesmerized. The man let go of him, and when Duncan was about to address him as Mr. White, the man introduced himself. "Young master, I'm Luke Gale, your mother's right-hand man. I'm so pleased to meet you, and I'm sure your mom would be more pleased to see you. Hold on." Duncan held up his finger, not wanting to sound rude.
I'm Duncan.
"South, and I don't know you. I was the one who called earlier, Master Walton," the man said, and Duncan was taken aback by the words of the caller. He had given his word to be there soon, and here he was. "Oh, I see." Duncan laughed strangely. "When did you guys get to this level, The man was surprised. "What do you mean, young master? So you fraudsters have now become imposters, so you could easily fool people and take the little things some of them have, You're mistaken, young master. I told you I'm not your young master. I'm simply Duncan. South is my last name. Why don't you just leave me and go?" He was getting infuriated by the man's unyieldingness. "I understand. You're confused and oblivious. But you're not Duncan South or whatever, you're Duncan Walton." "Excuse me?" "Yes, you're the heir of Walton's imperial conglomerate. You're my young master, and you're the son of Lady Zelda Walton." "What nonsense are you spewing?" "I'm being honest. You're the sole heir to Walton's imperial conglomerate and a 500 billion asset, estates included." Duncan wanted to jump in shock, but he felt his feet glued to the ground. He couldn't believe what his ears had heard. The sole heir to Walton's imperial conglomerate, and... He was almost replaying the words of the man in his head when it struck him. Walton's imperial conglomerate. It rang a bell in his head, and he gasped upon coming to realization. He has heard of great things about the Walton family at the restaurant and even in malls. Sometimes he had paid no attention to the sayings because he was more concerned about making his wife happy. The Walton's imperial conglomerate has over 50 recognized companies under them all over the country. They have chains of luxurious hotels too in and across the world, plus estates. He couldn't believe the man was addressing him, an impoverished delivery man, as the heir to the Walton's imperial conglomerate. "Do you mean what you're saying? Aren't you mistaking me for your young master? I understand I might look a bit much like him, but I won't take the advantage because... Sorry for cutting you off, young master, but you're my young master Walton, no one else. I'm glad to see you. Please follow us." "What?"
No.
"I'm not going anywhere with you guys." "I'm sorry, young master, but first I will do what is expected." Duncan's brows quirked as the man hurriedly beckoned to one of the men, who walked up to him and stretched out a tablet to him. Duncan, still greatly shocked, watched as the man clicked the screen, and in less than a minute, ding! His phone rang a message alarm. He took out his phone, still staring at the man. The man motioned to the phone when Duncan didn't remove his gaze from him. Duncan dropped his gaze to the screen of the phone, and what he saw pushed his mouth to fall open like the gates of heaven. His legs became weakened as his eyes grew bigger in awe. "Is this for real?" he screamed. "J. just got credited. $2.20 billion, he stuttered. "That's a little welcome gift," Luke said with a smile. "A little welcome gift?" Duncan thought, and his whole body went numb. "Master, I know that's little." "Huh? Little?" Duncan didn't know when he let out a silly short laugh to Luke's amazement. How can he call $20 billion little? Is he kidding? Duncan had never caught a glimpse of such an amount in someone else's account, and so he was in great shock. He was still trying hard to get over the shock when Luke signaled to another man. The man ran up to him with a mini silver case. He opened it and took out a gold card. "Master, this card is yours. It's an unlimited credit card with over $10 billion. Duncan felt his bones weaken like jelly, and he almost stumbled back, awestruck.